couple of things that are not really difficult to talk about because they're all over the news, and there's a lot of things out there that are giving us great information to share our opinions. But there's a couple things in particular that I think that we need to address. And if there's one or two people that watch this that might be a little bit more educated about some of the nuances when it comes to white privilege or racism in America, then I think it's worth talking about and leveraging this platform in order to maybe pay it forward in a way where one day you can pay it forward and someone will listen to you when you have something to say with regards to a couple things that I'm going to talk about. First of all, shout out to NC State, Cardiac Kids 2, led by DJ Burns Jr. If you haven't seen this Southpaw, who has helped his team string together 9 straight wins, and they are now not only the ACC champs, they are going to the Final Four. I mean, what an unbelievable run. So shout out to NC State. And the women. First Final Four for the women at NC State since 1998. So first for the men since 1983 when Jim Valvano was the coach. And the first for the women, and they've been a great program for the last few years, since 1998. So, man, they are fun to watch. I mean, coaches are usually pretty tempered on the sideline. And when DJ Burns came out of the game towards the end of the game, one of the assistant coaches, I mean, he couldn't contain himself. I mean, he was even like wanting to chest bump DJ Burns and having a little fun. Duke just, didn't play well, but, credit to Duke. Great season. Not an easy thing to do after Coach K retires a couple years ago, and they got to the Sweet 16. And then won the Elite Eight game. Just didn't, string together enough good possessions today to beat DJ Burns and company. Man, what a great game. Man, absolutely incredible. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is what's going on with the LA Times writer. I don't know if you saw this, but there was an initial post that came out from Ben Bolch. He basically said, do you prefer America's Sweethearts, talking about Iowa, because Iowa and LSU are going to be playing in the Elite Eight game on Monday night, along with UConn playing Juju Watson and Southern Cal. That literally could be a Final Four, but unfortunately, the way that the bracket's set up, that's going to be an Elite Eight matchup, those two games. Now, South Carolina won today. Shout out to them. And, along with NC State, they're going to the Final Four. So, basically, he said, do you prefer, he being Ben Bolch, do you prefer America's Sweethearts or its dirty debutantes? Milk and cookies or Louisiana hot sauce? Now, and Ben Bolch is white. I'm white. And when you are going to put out an op-ed, which is basically your opinion about something, you should probably, just like the shift that we've seen with comedians, if you're a white comedian, you should probably run it by someone who doesn't look like you to make sure that the material is okay with the times. And so Ben Bolch put out this opinion piece, among other things. Again, he said, do you prefer America's Sweethearts or its dirty debutantes? Now, I looked up a little bit of the history of debutantes. Anything that was initiated or started from a social class standpoint, anything that was in the early 1900s, whether it's the national anthem or the laws of our union or something to do with balls and debutantes, it was started by white people. It had a social class associated with it, which is racist inherently, knowing the history of our country, and it's sexist. And it's racist, because it has to do with basically white women. There were not black women until, I don't know, maybe in the 1970s, if, balls with debutantes was even a thing, where they were introduced socially for the first time. So Kim Mulkey, who just had an article written about her, the head coach of Louisiana State University, where Shaquille O'Neal went, where Mahmoud Abdul Rauf went, who was whiteballed by the NBA in the 90s for standing up to social injustice, along with Craig Hodges, similar to what Colin Kaepernick has gone through with the NFL, and Bruce Maxwell with Major League Baseball. And so Kim Mulkey, along with their point guard, Haley Van Lith, knew about the article before the game because it came out at 11:21 a.m. Pacific time. And so it's just something, as I said earlier, this guy Ben, I don't know much about him. He should have ran it by someone of color, some women at the LA Times, and said, hey, what do you think of this? When you do the out loud test, sometimes it doesn't necessarily in your own head because you have white privilege. You're white. You don't know what it's like to be a woman in this case because he's a man. I imagine he's identifying as he or him. I don't know that for sure. And now you have this backlash. So Kim Mulkey and LSU have already faced for the past year being the defending national champs, getting everyone's best, having to deal with NIL, having to deal with the ups and downs of a season. They haven't had much grace the entire year. LSU is not treated the way that Iowa and Caitlin Clark is treated. And so that is the reality of the situation, and it's completely unfair. Now, Kim Mulkey's passed, and if she was an old school kind of coach, and she did a lot of things that we expected old school coaches to do, getting in players' faces and cussing and questioning the way they dressed or had their hair and those types of things. You could wrap your head around it in the 80s and 90s, I guess. Mental health, but not in the 2000s, definitely not in the 2010s and 2020s. But this blatant using your platform, the LA Times. This isn't the Royal Oak Tribune in Royal Oak, Michigan, where no one cares. This is the Los Angeles Times. And so it's really a terrible look for the LA Times. It's an awful look for this guy, Ben. I don't know if he's since apologized. But the paper apologized because 10 hours and 49 minutes later, there was an update that said a previous version of this commentary did not meet the LA Times editorial standards, that it has been updated. So why it took 10 hours and 49 minutes to update, I have no idea. But see, this is just one of those things where there's going to be people that see it. People already hate Angel Reese because she's black, and they don't like how she waves goodbye to players when they foul out, or she tells them to fuck off when she herself fouls out, as she did in the previous game, or said what the fuck ever, something to that extent. And there's nuances to things that black and white players can say in sports, and I'm not going to get into that necessarily today, but there are nuances. You can say, for example, get that white shit out of here, or bitch-ass white boy. You can't say be a bitch-ass black boy, for example. You just can't say, like, there's just something, the N-word. There's things you can't say. But there are nuances to sports. Having played 4 years of college basketball, being a professional basketball skills trainer, having coached men at the college level for 15 years, and now I've been on the women's side for 18 years. There's just certain things you can't say. But everybody should be standing up for what this guy, Ben, said, even though the op-ed was updated. It's just awful. And milk and cookies or Louisiana hot sauce, I mean, talk about, people are saying, well, get over it. It's not. No, that you have a blind spot if you don't think that this is racist and that it's still an issue. And Haley Van Lith, who transferred from Louisville, who had helped her team have a lot of success last year and is the point guard and has struggled a little bit this year. But, she, along with Paige Beckers, the guard from UConn, have stood up for this very thing. Paige Beckers did it at the ESPYs a few years ago, and Haley Van Lith did it yesterday. And she said, we do have a lot of black women on this team. And unfortunately, this kind of bias does exist today, and a lot of people that are making those comments are being racist towards my teammates. Now, she went on to say that she saw this in high school. She saw this at Louisville. And see, this is the kind of thing where we need people like me who are micro-influencers at best. We need the Haley Van Liss. We need the Paige Beckers. We need the Caitlin Clarks to stand up when this type of thing happens, because you should be leveraging your white platform to amplify not only women's sports, because we're going through a reckoning because of Caitlin Clark, and Angel Reese is a part of that, and Paige Beckers, and Juju Watson from USC, who's going to be playing UConn, in this Elite Eight matchup on Monday. So, anyways, it's just an awful situation. I applaud Coach Mulkey, despite maybe some of the things that I don't agree with how she handled situations in the past. Her lack of public support for Brittany Griner. She only made one public comment that supported her coming home. But other than that, she has won 5 rings. 1 as a player, 4 as a coach, 3 at Baylor, 1 at LSU, and she's got a chance to win her 6th. So she's basically won as many rings as Kobe between being a player and a coach. More than Steph Curry, more than LeBron. So you can't argue the success of her teams, and she did it at 3 different places. La Tech as a player, Baylor as a coach, and LSU as a coach. So yeah, just unfortunate situation. Now, the Elite Eight games, man, if you can't get excited for that must-see TV, Elite Eight games on Monday, man. Juju Watson against Paige Beckers. Look, we got 3 future Hall of Famers playing on Monday. So I encourage all of you guys to watch those games, and it's going to be an amazing Monday night. This is the Monday night. Well, now that DJ Burns and NC State have a chance to play on Monday night in that Final Four game next Saturday, that's going to be must-see TV as well. But this is must-see TV. The women's ratings are through the roof. This is going to be possibly a 15 million number that we're going to see. Last year we saw 9.9 million, peaked at 12 million when LSU was playing Iowa and Caitlin Clark last year. But this is going to be an unbelievable, maybe the highest rating ever, professionally or intercollegiately, for any women's sport. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be unbelievable next weekend. So I encourage you to watch. It's going to be Juju Watson. Juju Watkins. My dogs are walking outside here, so I'm just trying to make sure that they're not going after a cat or something. Juju Watkins against Paige Beckers. And then Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese are going to be going at it in the other Elite Eight game. Oh, my goodness. And again, shout out to South Carolina, NC State, first 2 teams that are in the Final Four. And, man, NC State, both teams, and UConn's got a chance to have 2 teams in the Final Four. So that hadn't happened in a while. Now, speaking of the Elite Eight, I don't understand how the committees, I think that the 2 committees should be completely separate. The road to the Final Four should be separate. And all of that aside, there should be one time when they collaborate. They both should get together and say, is there any chance that any of these teams could have, the better teams obviously, or teams that are hot, is there any chance that both the men's and women's teams from the same university or college could make it to an Elite Eight, Sweet 16, a Final Four? And if so, are we going to schedule those things on different days, even though they may be on the same weekend, or at times when the presidents, the administrators, the fans, if they so choose, they could make it to both? Like, this situation with NC State is so frustrating. Like, at least with UConn, the fans and the administrators could go to both. I just don't understand it. The NCAA is so incompetent. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Jay Billis is the only person that can save the NCAA. The NCAA is going to go bye-bye at some point. The organization is so dysfunctional, I don't even know where to begin. So, anyways, those are my thoughts on Coach Mulkey. The Elite Eight game on Monday night is going to be, oh my goodness, unbelievable. And shout out to Coach Kim and Haley Van Lith for standing up for Angel Reese, for LSU, for using their platforms to speak out against racism, sexism, misogyny, and, look, there's zero tolerance for this kind of thing. Like, I'm sorry. This writer should have known better. And how somebody, you still have to run it by somebody at the LA Times. You can't just put something out there. So just an awful look. And I'm glad they amended it. But, the damage had already been done. So let me know what you think. I would love for you to subscribe, comment, like, share this out. And I will be back in the next couple days sharing my opinions about what's going on with the Final Four. Both tournaments have been great, but the women's tournament has been unbelievable. And honestly, if DJ Burns Jr. and NC State hadn't made it to the Final Four, UConn's a great story. They got a chance to repeat. And honestly, Danny Hurley has got a chance to be the new Coach K. Because there's no one out there. In the old days, we used to watch college basketball a lot for the teams and the coaches. And that's not necessarily the case anymore. So DJ Burns Jr. has saved this tournament. All eyes are going to be on NC State now, reminiscing about the 1983 NC State Wolfpack, who beat the Houston Cougars with Hakeem Olajuwon and upset them, the Cardiac Kids. This is like the Cardiac Kids 2. So anyways, I hope you guys are enjoying the road to the Final Four in March Madness. And until next time, much love. And please do anything you can to stand up and speak out against racism, sexism, misogyny, and educate yourself on some of the nuances that we still need today in order to promote the women's game, to reduce the amount of racism and sexism that still exists in this country. And we need white people like Haley Van Lith. Coach Mulkey did a great job in this situation. People like me, the white quarterbacks in the NFL who refuse to kneel with Colin Kaepernick, or Major League Baseball players as a whole to kneel with the Bruce Maxwells. And that's why Colin Kaepernick and Bruce Maxwell still don't have a job, because the players didn't strike and the players didn't kneel, especially the Peyton Mannings, the Eli Mannings, the Tony Romos, the Troy Aikmans, the Aaron Rodgers, and the Tom Bradys. Those guys refused to kneel with Colin Kaepernick initially and Bruce Maxwell later. And as a result, those two guys in particular don't have jobs still. And if white people that have that type of platforms do not leverage those platforms to stand up to the owners, to stand up to the writers like this guy from the LA Times, to educate people and educate themselves, then it's going to be really difficult to get those people in the middle, because the people on the extremes are not going to change. But the people in the middle have a chance to be more educated and make a difference when it comes to voting and putting people in positions that can influence, educate, and pay things forward, and see laws change, and see sports change, and see these false narratives that we've been seeing for not just 400 plus years, but for the last 50 years, even now, change for the better. Until next time, this is Hootie Hoop, host and producer of the Sports Daily Podcast. Now go do the right thing. Much love. Peace.